Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about how to maximize and use your paddle. So I'm going to talk about the paddle I use, how I set it up, what the different areas are, lead tape, grips, all that stuff, and I'm going to break down what I do and what are the advantages to what some other people do. And you guys can let me know in the comments if I miss anything. I'm happy to address it. I just want to cover kind of everything about the paddles. I know I've gotten a lot of questions. That may be the thing I've gotten asked most about. This paddle, that paddle, what do you do on this, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to cover all that today. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is my paddle. So I am using, it's a new Engage, it's the Engage Alpha, specific name, Pursuit Alpha Pro. So this is Engage's new line that's coming out very soon, so keep an eye out. I'm going to be working with them a ton on this. So I'm super excited for this paddle for a couple of reasons, but this isn't a paddle plug video, so I won't jump into it. But the big thing is the foam. It's adding a lot to the paddle. Whether you're using Engage though or another one, I think foam paddles are the future. There's a few reasons for that. They give you a lot of what's called dwell time. So what I love about this paddle, and the reason I'm using the thick one, right? We're going to talk about 16 versus 14. So thick paddles versus thin paddles is the dwell time. So in this new generation of paddles, the paddle compresses along with the ball. So in pickleball, right, unlike tennis, you don't get a ton of, one, you don't get a ton of ball compression, and two, you don't have strings, right? So dwell time is kind of the solution to that in pickleball. So with dwell time, what we get is we do get longer contact with the ball, which allows us to feel better on our drops, resets, all that kind of stuff, and impart more spin on the ball. So all of that is a huge advantage in the game, right? So that is the big reason why I think the foam paddles are super important, whatever brand you're using. The next thing I wanted to talk about is 16 versus 14. So a few advantages each way, right? So 16 millimeter paddle, what we like about it, right, is it is softer. So you're going to have more feel on those kind of shots. The second thing is that you're going to get less reverb around the outsides. So what I mean by that is when you hit closer to the edges on the 16, there's a little more give. So those balls that with a thinner paddle might shoot off don't as much with the 16. And then the biggest thing is with the foam paddles, increased dwell time, which is going to let you put more spin on the ball and have more feel. The bad part, right? Two things. One is drag. So a thicker paddle is going to drag more through the air. So it's going to be slightly slower on hands and stuff like that. And the second one is natural power. So if you're not using a power paddle, a foam paddle, any of the foam ones are good. So for the last year with the Engage paddle, with the Innovation, I was using the Innovation and the Pro one before that, I was using a thinner paddle because it didn't have enough pop. The foam paddles, in my opinion, have plenty of pop, so I went back to 16. You'll see that with a lot of the top players on the male side. Federico, Ben, Hayden, J-Dub, they're all using thicker paddles, not the thinner versions. And I think that's just for the increased feel, dwell time, all the reasons I was just talking about. For our thin paddle users, especially our ladies, it lets us produce more power, lets us have slightly faster hands, so there are definitely some big advantages to that. And if you're somebody who, one, if you're like, I need more power, look at those thin paddles. And if you're like, hey, I'm a power player, but I need more control, definitely take a look at those thicker paddles. So the next thing I want to talk about is, so I took off my edge guard tape already. So this is my paddle, so you can see where I have my lead tape and stuff. So the first thing I want to jump into is lead tape. I work with Bodie, he's awesome. So we just switched to tungsten tape. Talking about lead tape, the first thing I want to talk about is the locations, right? So location 1, bottom corner. Location 2, middle. Location 3, top corner. I guess location 4, top part here. I'm not going to talk about this. I don't love that spot unless you're really just playing singles. And then the fourth spot I was talking about is in the handle. So there's a couple reasons, and there's a few progressions with this. So as we progress up the paddle, what do we gain? We gain spin, power, and snap. And what I mean by snap is because the top of your paddle is now a little bit heavier, when you like use any sort of like shot that imparts spin on the ball, you're gonna get more snap with your wrist. It's slower, but you'll get more spin. So a lot of times singles players, for instance, put a lot more up top. But for doubles, we don't love that as much because it slows down our hands. So again, you can see here, I have mine on the bottom corner, but for instance, on the Innovation, I had mine on the sides. So really, generally, there's a couple ideas, right? One is sweet spot. So putting tape, for instance, in the four corners, which is super common, or on the sides, like I had previously, will give you a larger sweet spot. This is because the edges of the paddle, which may have turned before when they were hit, now have a little more weight to them, and they're going to be able to handle that wide ball without kind of firing it off or making an error. The other thing is weight. So literally pure weight of the paddle, right? So if you put on the same piece of lead up top and down low, it will feel different, even though the actual weight is the same. So relative weight is really important. This is why on this paddle I have it at the bottom. So I wanted to kind of soften up the paddle a little bit, so it has a lot of pop. So I wanted to make sure these edges are a little protected, but I didn't want to increase the weight, which is why, because these paddles were a little heavier than the old ones, I moved down from here to here. So I'm sacrificing maybe a little stability up top, but I'm keeping the weight low. I didn't like having the weight up top, but again, I mess around with this. So again, quick recap is lead up top is going to increase your power. It's going to give you some stability on the sides, but it's going to decrease your hand speed and increase the relative weight. Lead tape in the middle is a happy medium in my opinion. If you want that stability, you want it to put some lead on, but it seems a little too heavy, shift it down to the middle. So instead of 4 corners, go middle. I like that a lot. And then at the bottom, this kind of gives you a little bit of stability, maybe a little more weight in the paddle if you want to get that weight up like I did, but it keeps the weight out of the top, keeping the relative weight low. Now, if this still feels heavy, this is when that fourth option comes in. And I've talked to a few pros recently, more people are putting their weight in their handle. I've never done it, but the idea is it keeps the relative weight very low because, again, as we swing, it feels heavier the further away from our hand it is. The weight in the handle would be right there, so it'd be a lot lighter. I'm not gonna give a tutorial on doing that because I don't know how, so you're gonna have to check with someone else on that. So putting on our lead tape is super easy. I'm not really honestly gonna go through it. The lead tape's super simple. I take it out, I measure my pieces, I cut them, I put them on. Make sure you put them on in the same spot, but other than that, it's a pretty easy process. So the next part of the paddle, right, is our grips. So I actually think this is a super overlooked part. So I'm actually gonna show you guys both parts. So first I have a Bodhi grip on here. I'm gonna take it off. So I'll kind of rush through this for you guys so you guys can see it. Okay, now that we have our clean paddle, right? So I think you have 2 different options with your paddles. One, if the size of your grip, once you put an overgrip on, is good, you're good. But with the last paddles, I didn't like it. I like it more with this one. So what I did with the last ones is you can actually take off this bottom layer and put on 1 or 2 overgrips to mess with the size. So again, you really want to be comfortable. I don't mind as much as other people, but there is a comfortable kind of size for me. And with the last paddle, I put on 2 overgrips and it was a little bit thicker. These were a little thicker to start with. So I leave on the original and I put on 1, right? So when I put mine on, there's a couple things I focus on, right? So again, overgrips. What are the options? What are the drawbacks? What are the advantages? So I'm going to talk about all 3 of those things. First, I'm going to make sure this overgrip goes on nicely. Okay, so take the tape off. Bodhi's have 2 pieces of tape. A lot of them only have 1 though. So you take it off and then there's going to be a little piece of tape on the back. So we're going to take that off as well. And now, so you want to put it up top. It doesn't really matter where you start. And then we're going to wrap. So the thickness of the wrap will determine, so how tight I pull will determine how much thickness is added to my grip. So I know that I like this a little bit looser, medium, not super loose actually, kind of in between, and that's the thickness I like. But if you decide that it's too thick, pull it tighter. And if you decide it's too tight, leave it a little bit looser. So if I wrap it like this really loose, it'll be thicker. And if I pull it super tight like that, it'll be a little thinner. So I'm going to skip through this, but again, I kind of line mine up a certain way. It's kind of a preference. I kind of just put mine right here towards the bottom of each layer and then go. So at the end, you're going to have this piece, right? So the longer this is, so the more I have left, the tighter my grip is, and the less I have, the looser my grip is. So it's kind of, again, totally preference-based. I see people that wrap it super tight and people that wrap it really loose. So I think this is just a trial and error thing. Luckily, they're not super expensive. Check out Bodhi. He's great. He has lots of different colors, but any grip you use is definitely good, but you should figure it out. The only other one is if you have sweating problems like I do, Bodhi sells these ultra tacky, and so does Torna. Those are the 2 that I really think are good for if you have like a real sweat problem. I've used Bodhi's more, but I do know people that use Torna as well. Bang. So now we're wrapped. So this is how I like mine. I feel it feels good. It's a little bit sticky, but nothing crazy. And that's kind of how I like it. I don't have it with me, but I will also put a piece over my edge guard. That's just so you can even see, like, I don't actually know if you can see, but here, I have some marks already. If I don't have the edge guard tape, I think I really scrape it up. I just don't like it because I don't want this to like peel off or have any problems. Okay, so some of you guys have told me you really like me doing a short, concise recap if you don't have a ton of time, so I'm gonna do that real quick, right? So this is the stuff I like about my paddle. So one, find a paddle that you like. Does not have to be Engage. I love the Engage paddle, I really do. I work with them. If you haven't checked them out, please do. But find your paddle, find the one you love, right? Then, the first thing I would decide with the paddle, 16 or 14. Some of them have 12s. What I'm really saying is thick or thin. Pretty much every paddle company makes a thick version and a thin version. Find the one you like. Again, thicker paddles, more control, more spin, more dwell. Thinner paddles, more pop, more hand speed, less control. Power control side, that's the kind of the choice. With foam, I think this is the key in the future. You can kind of have both. They have a lot more power, so a lot of people tell me they can use the 16 and still have a lot of power. I think that's the happy medium. If you could find a 16 with a lot of power, like I have here, I think that's perfect. Next thing, now that you have your paddle, right, they come usually from 7.8 to 8.2. That's the common range. Find the weight, weigh them, find the weight that you like, right? So now that you've found the weight of the paddle that you want, figure out where to put your lead tape. Right, so you want it at 8.5 and it comes at 8.0, right? You put your overgrip on, now it's 8.1, 8.2, so you know you need 0.3 grams, so 0.3 ounces, sorry. So you're gonna figure it out, right? Again, lead tape in the handle, the least relative weight. The next least, medium, most relative weight. As you move up the paddle, it feels heavier. It's gonna put a little more stress on your arm as well. So if you have problems with tennis elbow, keep the lead tape low. So lead tape down here, sweet spot, especially if you do the four corners, works on the sweet spot, but a little more weight. So down here at the bottom gives me a little stability on the sides, but it keeps the weight down. In the middle, gonna give you a more sweet spot, a bigger sweet spot than what I have, but it's gonna raise the weight a little bit. And the weight in the up top, I think I would only use if I was doing the four corners, but again, it's gonna have more weight and really work on that sweet spot. But it's also gonna give you a little more spin as you move up. So again, as we move our lead tape up, we get more spin and more power, and as we keep it down, we work on that sweet spot and control. So again, it's really gonna be that control power scale. It's more a preference thing. There really is no one right answer. So messing around is the key. Then, now that we have our lead tape done, or our tungsten tape here, now the overgrip, right? So with the overgrip, a thicker overgrip is going to, if you have problems because you're holding too tight, it will loosen your hand a little bit, help you that way. But it may be hard to switch grips or make small adjustments. The thinner grip, I'm slightly on the thinner side, I would say, lets me change the grip a little quicker, but it is sometimes tough with the thin grip. Sometimes it's easy to kind of over squeeze. So if you have that over squeezing issue, that thicker grip is a really good key. So that's what I think about when I think about paddles and stuff, but I do hope that I covered all of your guys' questions. But if I didn't, just drop me a line in the comments. I answer every comment. I love to help all of you out. So just let me know below if there's anything else you want to know. I can comment if it's a super easy one. I really appreciate everyone watching and all the comments and likes and love. So don't miss the next one. I have a really good next video coming. It's with my dad, so it's a lot of fun. So I will see everyone next time. Thank you guys for watching.